show for faith-driven entrepreneurs, professionals, and leaders who refuse to choose between their calling and their ambitions. I'm your host, Nnamdi Hanacho. You are built for more in every area. Let's get into it. But before we do that, want to make sure technology is good. Let's check. I'm seeing some things. There we go. Looks like YouTube is live. Excellent. So we're good. Thank you everybody for being here. I hope your week has been good again. Make sure you like, subscribe, and do all the things we do so we can continue to grow this channel. Before we get into today's conversation, I have a question that I want to drop for you, right? For you, as somebody who is building something, you as an entrepreneur, as somebody who is leading a nonprofit, who is leading an institution, who is just a creator, what has been the cost for building for you, right? What has it cost you? What is the cost for building, right? You being a leader, being a forerunner, a pathfinder, a trailblazer, a pioneer. What has that cost you, right? And I'll phrase this question differently. What is it cost you've had to pay as a builder that nobody told you about or people rarely talk about? Okay, let me know your answers in the comment section. I know some of us will be watching this delayed or afterwards. I will definitely come back to check out your answers, but I want to hear it. I want to see it. I want to engage with you. All right, so give me your responses. But my anchor scripture that I'll base today's conversation from will be from Luke chapter 14, verse 28, right? And it says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't first sit down and estimate the cost, right? King James says, and suppose anybody wants to build a tower, won't you first sit down and count the cost, right? And so today I'll be walking you through four honest costs that every faith-driven builder has to carry, right? But they rarely say out loud. It's something that we have to deal with. We have to, everyone who is building something meaningful has experienced all four, one of two of or three of, but you can relate to this. And for somebody who is just at the beginning stages of your journey, this is not to scare you, it's to prepare you, right? So you know what to expect and you walk into doing stuff with you understand exactly what you're walking into. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. The first cost of building is relational cost. Relational cost. That is the people who don't understand the vision, the friendships that thin out when you start building seriously. Okay, there's when you start building, when you start taking leadership or start taking this passion seriously, not you will not be able to carry everybody along with you, right? Not because you do not want to, but because not everybody is going to be at the same frequency, right? What you are not going to let happen is other people weigh you down. Some people won't see it. Some people they won't. Their mind can't. They can't wrap their mind around the fact that you are the one leading this initiative. You are the one who is starting this project. You are the one spearheading this thing. You are the one who dared to dream, who dared to step out. Right? Think about Joseph. Right in the Bible in Genesis, he had dreams and he shared with his family, with his parents, with his brothers, his entire family. Nobody believed him. And, the only closest thing to believing him was the Bible records that the father, Jacob, took note of his dreams. Even though they still chastised him, they said, hey, he took note of it. But that's as much support as he received. Okay, so, and in the end, what did it cost him? It was the people he trusted the most selling him out. Like, let's see what becomes of his dreams. Like, literally, those were the words of his brothers. He was going to get them food or taking food to them in the field. He came to do a service for them. And then one person said, hey, here goes the dreamer. Let's deal with him so and so way. And let's see what becomes of his dreams. Right? Because sometimes the things that your assignment is going to be a little bit, not everybody is going to get it. Not everybody will be able to comprehend the depth of your assignment. For some, it's not that. It's for some other people, it's why are you the one, right? Look at the Moses in the Bible, right? Moses leading Israel and doing all of this. At some point, it was his sister, Miriam, the same sister and the brother, who was his prophet. So the people who played a very pivotal role in him being able to, Miriam was pivotal in him surviving, right? She was the one who went to watch over Moses when he was put in the basket. and was found, and he played it. She played a key role, right? Aaron was the one who was Moses' mouthpiece when he was going to Pharaoh. These are very critical, important relationships that were instrumental to not just Moses surviving and growing and maturing and maybe understanding who he was and his assignment, but they were I want to say the most important relationships to him. And it was the same Miriam who goes like, hey, why is God talking only to Moses? God can speak to me as well, right? It's why like God had to strike out with leprosy. God had to chastise Aaron and say, hey, I speak to everyone, but there's nobody I speak face to face with like my servant Moses. So people that knew you at a certain level are not going to be able to comprehend, might not be able to comprehend like, hey, this is where this person now sits in this position. It's mind blowing to them. It's going to be people's attitudes will change because they're wondering like how, why him, why her, right? What is the how did they, what's special about them? I know this person, and so it's going to affect the relationships. That is the relationship cost, right? And there's stories upon stories of, and you might have experiences already where it's this person really used to be cool. You guys used to be cool. You grew up together, and now it doesn't feel the same anymore. It's the cost of building. It's that relationship cost. It's important to be, do your best to maintain relationships, healthy ones, intentional relationships that are also advancing, helping you advance the cause of God's call on your life. So there's an intentionality that comes with that, but there's going to be a cost in terms of your circle. Your circle is going to change. Your relationships will change. So that is the first cost I'm addressing today, is the relationship, the relational cost. The second one is the financial cost, right? The financial cost. There are at the foundational stages of every vision, you're going to go through the seasons of no. I'll tell you when I remember transitioning when I moved to Atlanta and I was trying to get into the workforce, navigating immigration and applying to get sponsorship. It was commonplace. I got rejected so many times. I became immune to rejection. A lot of the time, those rejections are precursors to the great thing that is coming. For some it's you are pitching actively to investors and nobody is seeing what you are, they're not seeing the vision, right? I watch this thing, my wife and I will watch Shark Tank. There was a time we used to watch it all the time judiciously, and I always used to get upset, like, why would you bring your idea to these people and then have them destroy something that made sense to you, something that you put your heart and soul into it, and then you see these cats just talk badly about the idea and tell you why it's not going to work and that's a bad idea. And even more annoying is when they try to make ridiculous offers. So you come in and I was at 100,000 for 5% of the company, and then they hit you with, well, I will give you 100,000, but I want 35%. Like, my brother, how? And so I guess that's why they're called sharks. But you are the financial cost. I digressed a little bit there, but there's going to be a financial cost to you at the beginning when you're going from that idea to MVP for your idea, for your initiative. Where you've not proven it, you would have to invest. It's going to cost you money to put this together. Thank God for the era of artificial intelligence that we're in now. If you are building a technology product, you can do that with very minimal costs, right? You don't have to hire a developer these days. You don't have to. Prior to artificial intelligence, building an MVP, you would have to hire developers from India, from somewhere, right, to build some prototype for you. And so, yes, the cost, but again, if you're not building a tech product, a software product, if you are building physical products, and everybody's creating apps, somebody might be creating a physical product that's going to serve children, that is going to help, car washes improve how they are checking processes, right? For you, might be a physical product. And from that zero to MVP stage of the building process, you would have to invest your money. And so that financial cost, and it comes out, and that's another thing when you try to, let's say, raise money to maybe build out that initial prototype or that MVP. That's where the rejection starts, because now you want to raise some money. Maybe you go talk to family and friends because that's the first set of investors you should have, and they don't believe it. They're not buying it, and so suddenly their money is tied up. Their money is doing something that does not make sense. But yeah, that relational cost, that financial cost, is sometimes you're going to spend, the foundational stages of your business. You will bootstrap the thing, because it makes sense to only you, right? I've seen people at different stages, even in ministry, where they have to pretty much use personal funds. They have to do extra jobs to keep funding their idea, to keep it to keep it afloat. They go take on extra shifts, drive Uber, to fund the vision, right? To make sure there is resources coming in. They have resources to keep this thing afloat, to pay staff, to do this, to do that. So there's going to be a financial cost to build it, right? And that's why Jesus was asking that question: which of you who wants to build a house, who wants to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the costs? It is so important that you sit down and look at this thing. What is it going to cost me? And see if you have the capacity, right? Because we're talking about the cost of building. Okay, you can't. Ideas are great, passion is exciting, but at some point, to when you are ready to move, you have to sit down. If you don't want to run into a situation where you just flat out crash, then it's important that you take your time to count the cost. And I'm talking about real monetary costs. What is it going to cost me? One of the things, even with a nonprofit, first this year with the African Immigrant Collective, our summit is the first time we are doing a paid event, right? The Business Igniter program that we just launched in cahoots with the Gwinnett Chamber Foundation. If you're just meeting me, I have a nonprofit, the African Collective. I'm also founder for Enstar Technologies. And so, both ventures, but I'm talking about the nonprofit specifically. We've existed for 2 years, right? 2 years in our two of existence. We've done four conferences, fifth one coming up in June, right? So we've implemented four conferences and didn't charge for anyone. And I'm talking about each of those conferences had over 100 people, every one of them. And so it's costing us. The women's conference, those ones are virtual conferences. It's still costing us Zoom. It's costing us promotional resources. It's costing me money to pay staff, right? It's costing Zoom. We have to spend, because the regular professional Zoom is 100 people. I'm now anticipating you'll see registration numbers go up to 300 and 350 and 400. And so the 100-person Zoom is not going to cut it. And so there's a cost to these things, right? With the 2 years we've run things without charging anything, and we still, again, we just started. What are we charging for our programs? Pretty much insignificant, but we're trying to, okay, if we're going to be sustainable for a long time, we need to, revenue has to start coming in, and we need to train ourselves to one charge, but also train our community to pay for things. So we're easing the community into, okay, you have to start paying for some of the things. Our summit is going to be paid, and we're excited about going into that. So one of my goals this year is to go into the new year with money. That is a big goal for us. So we start the year with, okay, we have resources to pay for hall, to do one or two things. And so that's, I say all that to say, this business has been going. It's being paid for somehow. We have a physical facility. We have a place. We pay rent every month. We pay staff. I have 5 people on staff. And so anyway, I share all of this to say there's a monetary cost. You have to think through all of this so you don't get burnt out. You don't get caught unaware. So the third cost of building is the emotional cost, right? The emotional cost. It is lonely at the top. You remember that? Oh, lonely at the top. I've not heard that song in a long time, right? It's lonely at the top. I hope I did not infringe on any copyrights. Please forgive me, lonely at the top, guys. But it is lonely at the top. And that just means the loneliness of leading at the front. The path of the trailblazer is, I've said this many times, the path of the trailblazer is hard. The path of the trailblazer is lonely. It is difficult. When you choose to take the path that has not been treaded, you are going to walk on treaded paths, and you are going to be walking alone a lot of the time, right? We just talked about, relational costs. That means people that you've grown up with not being there for you, or not being able to be there for you. You're making sacrifices. Even people who want to be there for you, like your family, and you're I'm not going to share this one. We'll just keep that moving. But there is such a huge cost, an emotional toll building takes on you. Like you see pastors, you see leaders. I was just having a conversation with my wife. before I started recording this, before I came downstairs to record, I was talking about relationships and how when you are somebody of value and somebody who is giving to giving and continuing to meet the needs of others, right? You're in that servant leadership mentality and you're always seeking for, as a community builder, that's one thing that we have is we're always seeking to serve the community because that's how, giving value and giving value. And then so suddenly people see you as a value giver and don't see you as somebody who also needs to be poured into, who also needs to be appreciated, right? People who you are close to will not think of you when it's time for celebrations or parties, but when it's a need, when somebody needs to have a problem solved, when it's chaos is going on and need someone to step in, or an emergency, or we need people, suddenly your name is top of the list, right? And sometimes it is emotionally tasking, like, why don't they like me? It's not you, it's the cost of building. So there's always that emotional toll. Even thinking about the life of Jesus Christ, walking on the path to destiny, on the road to Calvary. Those nights leading before when he knew what was about to go down, and it was clear he had the moment of like just breaking down in tears and crying blood. I said, Father, if it is your will, let this cup pass from me. Right? It's that moment of vulnerability and emotional breakdown is something most builders have faced or will face, right? Because it is lonely, because it is tasking, because of the weight of the assignment. And that's why, Paul talks about for the joy that was set before him, he endured the pain of the cross. So for the goal, for the assignment, for the vision that you are carrying, right? You go through the pain, you go through the stress, you go through it, right? Again, I'm not saying ignore your mental health, ignore your, ignore any of that. No, I'm just saying it's going to happen. I'm telling you the cost now so you can prepare. Okay, so that when that time comes, you will have equipped yourself and you are ready for those moments and you're ready to step up to the demands of the time. Okay. The next cost is the identity cost, right? You are basically becoming someone new while honoring who you used to be, who you were, right? It's very important. As you navigate this journey, a new you begins to emerge. You become one of the things I feel like it's happening to me, especially in the last few years, is it's almost like I have a new sound, right? My voice, and maybe physically it's not changing, but it's almost like the authority in it is different. The way I move and I speak, the language, the terms are adjusting. And so there's that. It's almost like the perception now. People see me and see somebody. There's an identity that I have evolved into, right? And it continues to evolve. You know how the Bible says, as we behold him in a glass, as we are in the mirror, we are changed into the same image from glory to glory. You behold him, you become more like him. It's the more you are pouring yourself into this assignment, you become more of the person who is doing this thing. You become more one with the assignment, and then there's a change in your personality to match and meet the demands of the responsibility of the assignment of the mission, right? Remember, this is Anointed Ambition. You're going after the thing, right? And people who follow us on this community, you have decided you are not waiting for permission. You are going after everything that God has told you that you're meant to create. Like we are saying, we are refusing to settle for status quo, right? Because of no, we're coming for all of it, right? Everything as a king and as a priest that God has ordained for us, we're coming for it. And so, but in that pursuit, in that time of building, you will change. Who you are will change. And again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Some people look at it like you've changed. It's not a bad thing. A lot of time, it's not change, it's growth, right? What people will say when they say you change, it's a lot of the time what they are not saying properly is they should be saying you've grown. But to them, it's you're not the same person. That's what you're not the same person I knew. You're not the same person that you use. You don't sound the same. You have a different sound. You have a different aura. You have a different charisma, a different courage. That is because the work you are evolving based on the demands of the assignment. That's how we are created. We evolve based on the circumstances, on what the assignment that's placed in front of us. And so you're going to change, but at the same time, you still want to be that person. And so navigating that, that transition, honoring who you are becoming, who God is, because you have to change to really be able to handle the weight of the assignment. Right? You can't be the same person for the new assignment. You can't be the same person who you used to be for the assignment you are going to, that you're meant to have. And that's a lot of times, again, this is another day we'll talk about seasons. But that's why people have to go through seasons, like where God has to put you through certain things and pretty much like just remove who you used to be and build and construct the person that can handle the weight of the assignment that he has put inside of you. Okay. But then there's the you that, oh, you still want to be the uncle, the respectful son, the caring daughter, the one who, the husband. You're still that person, so you still have to be able to. Those things should not change, right? And so, but that's a cost that you have to navigate as a builder. And again, like I've said, it is something I'm seeing. Knowing how to make sure that to my kids, I'm still dad, right? I am not, when I'm talking to them, even when I talk about my work and the mission, it's still from a place of nurturing versus pitching versus performing versus trying to show, because you're almost always as a founder, as a, you are a relationship builder, you are a access, you're always seeking access and networks and trying to make relationships and do all of those things. So there's almost always a, not performance, but you're always in that mode, right, where you're interviewing, sort of, quote unquote. So being able to navigate that's a cost that you have to prepare for, when you are building anything of worth. All right. So that is wanted to talk about those four costs in this video. So for anybody who, um, who is building, these are the four things that I need you to be paying attention to, when you are counting the cost. You know, what it's you just I want you to know, pay attention to those things, and then each of the costs that I have, you know talked about, have what they will produce in you, right? And so it's okay, you have to go through, you have to pay each of this, what I call it, prices, to get to a certain level as you evolve in your journey as a builder. Okay, so when I talk about, say, the relational cost, right? As you stay faithful to the process, relational cost, when you are paying that cost, what you get as a reward is going to be clarity, right? It's, now you don't just stay with people, you stay with people who your assignment needs, right? There's that natural filtration. And so you'll suddenly realize, I'm surrounded by aligned people. I find myself in meetings, in rooms, and I wonder, wow, like, it's exciting here now because everybody sounds the same. Not again in the sound that comes out of our lips and our mouths, but in terms of everybody here is building, everybody seems to be aligned, and so it's easier to make meaningful connections, it's easier to collaborate, it's easier to get stuff done in those spaces, right? So yes, there's a cost that the circle adjusts, but suddenly the people around you become people, there's a level of clarity, because the people who stay are the people who your assignment needs. The financial cost to produce faith, you're going to learn to trust God for provision. Jehovah Jireh, our provider, his grace is sufficient, right? You're going to learn that song and sing it all the time. You learn to trust, what you cannot yet see. That's what that cost will produce for you, right? It will produce that trust, that faith, that God will provide. And I'm not going to let the resources prevent me from stepping into or stepping out in pursuit of what I know I am called to do. That's what's that, paying that price, or understanding that cost to produce inside of you. And the next one is the emotional cost that will produce depth, right? The leader who has been lonely, when they finish paying that, they are going to have more compassion. right? Because they understand what it feels like. They have that empathy, right? So that season of isolation, after you have gone through it, you become someone who can empathize with people that God sends to you. Does that make sense? So that emotional cost builds that empathy. It builds that compassion. It builds that, you know, genuine care for your people because again you can relate, right? And so you see Jesus going through his seasons of isolation. Again, as a man, when he was a man, taking that form of a man, I feel like all those isolated moments, relational moments helped him be able to, when the Bible talks about we do not have a high priest who is not touched, by our afflictions. It's like, hey, he could relate. He could relate. And so that's that emotional cost, what it will produce in you. And then the identity cost is going to produce authority, right? That's an outcome. When you pay the identity cost, if you stay long enough and stay faithful through the process, what you will have is authority, right? You become the leader who, you can lead others through transformation, because you have gone through the same thing, right? You've navigated it, so now I can speak to it. I can speak on this because it's something I have experienced. Okay, and so it's very, very it's very important. Going back to where we started from, for anyone who is going to build a house, you must first sit down and count the cost. We used to have a saying in my language, and I don't know if it's applicable here, but it sounds correct. We say, "Jirege goezege," use your tongue to count your teeth. It's counting inside of there, so counting the cost. Use your tongue to count your teeth. Again, if it applies, good. If not, just think of it as another random Igbo proverb that you have learned today. But again, I just want to encourage everybody that is building, keep building. You have a unique grace to start to see things from zero to something. That's an incredible grace that you and dimension you operate in, and you should be proud, and be, appreciate the gift that God has given you. All right. Remember in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 13, the Lord will make you the head and not the tail. And I want you to hold on to that word as you, navigate the rest of the week, as you pursue. God has promised He will make you the head and not the tail. You will be above only and not beneath. All right. So I am excited for what God is going to do through every one of us, anointed builders out there. Keep building. Don't stop. Even when it gets tough, don't stop because God who has begun the good work is faithful to complete it and he will see it to perfection. All right. So don't give in, pay whatever price you have to pay because on the other side of paying that price is a crown. It is well done. It is you trading your talents and then hearing that, having it multiply. It's you multiplying your talent. So go for it, my friend. I believe in you. I truly, truly believe in you. I cannot wait to hear your testimony. All right. We have set the date for our first version of sharpening. Again, we're supposed to launch the sharpening this month, but because there's so many things going on within the African American Collective and Star, we've had scheduling difficulties. But again, the sharpening, for those who are not aware, is going to be our in-person fellowship for faith-based professionals to come. It's going to be community. It's going to be Bible study. It's going to be talking. We're going to be actually speaking on real life workplace, having real world conversations. We'll deal with topics, and then we'll break bread together as a family. If you're in Atlanta, we'd love to have you in person. The details will be going out at some point this week. We'll confirm the logistics, and then we'll announce to everyone. So be on the lookout for that. I'm excited. We are going to be doing it on June the 12th. But after June, it's going to be every third Friday. So June, we're doing the second Friday. But after June, it will be the third Friday. It's going forward. And there'll be other things coming up. So stay plugged and stay connected. I can't wait to share all of that with you. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Anointed Ambition. If any of this has blessed you, make sure you leave a comment. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, and please share with somebody else that needs to hear this. Until I come your way again, God bless you. Stay anointed, stay ambitious, because the best is yet to come. I will talk to you same time next week. Good night.